Okay, so I'm back. Sorry, my video only lets me record for 15 minutes, so we're almost done here. All right, so we left off talking about behavioral isolation, and that is when two different species have different mating rituals. If we take a look at the blue-footed booby bird, they have a very characteristic dance that they perform to show off their characteristics of their traits. Okay, so there we go. Let's see if I can get this to work. So we can go ahead and take a look at this.
See, look at that, look at that. It's like an engagement, like a phone, like saying, hey, look, I am blue like you.
Which one is the male, the smaller, or the larger?
The male is the one that just spread the wings.
Okay, the male is the smaller.
The female appears with a bigger pupil.
So this one right here,
Okay, so that was showing just kind of a courtship behavior. And so different birds will do different dances. We've talked about how the, what is that thing called? The peacock, right? Shows his beautiful feathers, and he'll chase the females around and show them off and do all kinds of cool things to show that female that he has the coolest blue feet or the best feathers. And boy, if he has all the extra energy to be able to show off these crazy colors and survive in this world, then he must have some pretty good genes. And so that's a way for them to show fitness. Behavioral isolation also, if we take a look at this, we have an eastern and a western meadowlark shown here in the pictures. Not a whole lot of differences between them. Not a lot of differences between them. And so we see that these two bird species actually overlap in ranges, but we find that they also do not mate because they have characteristically different songs that they sing. Okay, so that's a behavior isolation. It might be songs, it might be dances, it might just be something along the lines of how long do we spend in courtship behaviors, and things like that. Okay, some more behavioral isolations. This actually is going to show a couple different kind of reproductive barriers that we have. We have the white-tailed deer and we have the muley deers right here. And one of the deers, and I get this wrong every time I explain this, so we'll just say one. I don't know which one it is. One of the deers, we have a habitat isolation. One of the deers lives up in a higher elevation, and the other one lives down on a lower elevation. So that actually would be an example of a habitat isolation. Even though they live on the same mountain ranges, and we see both of them kind of around here, they generally aren't in the exact same area. Okay, again, one's higher, one's lower elevation. But not only is the habitat kind of separating them, because we do see that their ranges overlap a tiny bit in kind of that mid zone, but they also have different mating behaviors. All right, but the interesting thing is that the mating between these two different deer species only goes one direction. And the way that it works is that it's only the mule deer does, the female mule deer, can only mate with the whitetail males, the bucks. Okay, and there's a reason, because they have different behavioral barriers, behavioral mating patterns. Okay, so when mule deer mate, I got to think about this and get this straight. So when mule deer mate, they just stand there. So the male mounts the girl, life is great, off to have the babies. Okay, however, with the white-tailed deer, what they're used to is that when they mount the female, they walk around together while they're mating. So when we see this behavioral isolation, it really can only happen one direction, and that is when the white-tailed deer mates and he mounts a mule deer who's just standing there. It's not hard to figure out what's going on. But if we take that and we reverse it in the other direction, a deer that's used to standing still, and then he mounts a female and she starts walking around, he's like, whoa, I don't know what's going on. All right, so again, we only see this. So this is a behavioral isolation. Now, we do see sometimes that this does happen, where the does from the mule deer mate with the males of the white-tailed deer, or maybe vice versa, I guess. They will actually have babies, but the babies are infertile. So, and it doesn't happen often enough that these two separate species become one. Okay. All right. So now we're going to move on to the post-zygotic mechanism. So post, again, remember, means after the zygote has formed. So the egg and the sperm have fused, and we may or may not have a baby. All right. So this prevents a hybrid. A mixture of two separate species, when they come together to form a baby, is referred to a hybrid. It is not a species. It is a hybrid. Okay. All right, so it prevents this hybrid from developing into viable, which means livable, fertile, able to have their own babies, adults. Okay, then there's a few of these. All right, the first one is referred to as the reduced hybrid viability. So let's think about this word, reduced, lower, hybrid, a mixture of two species. Okay, viability, able to live. So these guys can be born, but they're not going to be really healthy. Okay, so, and this is actually the hybrid, so this is when we see with the babies, the zygotes, okay? So if a sheep and a goat mate, okay, sometimes that does happen, but the embryo and the the egg and the sperm will fuse, but they won't be able to be born because of chemical hormone differences that prevent that baby from being born. And so we see this in terms of like miscarriages. Okay, has anybody ever seen one of these before? Okay, so this is our mule. All right, and this is a hybrid. It's a hybrid between a horse, a domestic horse, and a donkey. Okay, and what we see with this mule is that the mules themselves have 63 chromosomes. Okay, a horse, however, has 64 chromosomes, and a donkey has 62. So when they come together to form their pairs, it kind of compromises, and it's kind of in the middle as to 63 chromosomes. So how does that work? Well, it doesn't work very well. There's enough information in the genes to build the organism, but what we find then is that the mules are always sterile. Okay, and so mules can't go on to have more mules. Horses can have horses, donkeys can have donkeys, horses and donkeys can have a mule, but mules can't have mules. All right, so the line ends at that particular offspring. All right, and so this is referred to as reduced hybrid fertility. Fertility meaning that the hybrids cannot go on to have babies because they are infertile. Okay, the last one that we're going to talk about is hybrid breakdown. And so what we see is that we have a hybrid, so we have two separate species. The egg and the sperm find each other. They can fertilize each other. We can even have a baby that grows. However, the babies are not very healthy. Okay, sometimes they don't grow up to adulthood. They die before they get to adulthood. Sometimes they can, but as we go through the generations, they just get sicklier and sicklier and sicklier. Okay, we see this in various types of plants. We also see this kind of thing where we see this with the lions and the tigers as well. I know it says reduced hybrid viability here, but we see this as the hybrid breakdown where your ligers or your tigons can't go on to have more babies, or the babies that they do have are very sick and don't last very long. Okay, well, those are the different types of reproductive isolating mechanisms. So remember, as we kind of go back through here, that if we have two separate populations and they accumulate enough mutations, if by any chance they come back together and they can't mate anymore because of one of these barriers that have kind of been inbred in them as the generations have gone on, they are then considered to be separate species. Okay, I hope this helps, and I hope you guys are enjoying your day.